All right, let's get right into it. Today, we're talking about a technology that is completely rewriting the rules of modern war. From the skies over Ukraine to the absolute depths of the ocean, these unmanned systems, they're creating a change so big, some people are saying it's the biggest military revolution since the nuclear bomb. So that's really the big question we're tackling, right? Are we actually living through the next huge military revolution? Well, to figure that out, we've got to look at where this stuff is being put to the ultimate test, the modern battlefield. And honestly, there's no better place to start than on the front lines in Ukraine. This is where a whole new kind of warfare is being invented, like right now, in real time. So picture this, you're on the front line. In just 2 minutes, a small team can get this thing in the air. It's called the Vector Reconnaissance Drone, and its whole job, fly deep behind enemy lines and be the eyes for artillery units that are miles and miles away. It's quiet, it's fast, and it is brutally effective. And these little systems have gotten so capable. I mean, the Vector can stay up for over 3 hours, flying so high, you literally can't see it or hear it from the ground. But the real magic, that's its brain. It uses AI to navigate with just its camera, which means it can find its way even if its GPS gets jammed. And get this, its targeting AI can tell the difference between soldiers and vehicles all by itself, tracking a target without a human having to do a thing. And all of this leads to this huge new idea in warfare, the transparent battlefield. What that means is, thanks to drones like the Vector, the old fog of war is basically disappearing, and that changes everything. It means armies can't bunch up in big formations anymore. They have to spread out in tiny units and get really good at hiding. Because in this new reality, there's almost nowhere left to hide. But look, the Vector is just one piece of this giant puzzle. The war in Ukraine has pretty much become a live-fire laboratory, and it's showing us a whole new playbook for how to fight with drones, with different types playing really specific roles. Yeah, this table breaks it down pretty well. First, you've got your recon drones, the eyes in the sky. Then you have the classic combat drones, like the Predator, the ones that fire missiles. A massive new category are these kamikaze drones, things like the Russian Lancet or the Iranian Shahed. They're basically just flying bombs. And then there's maybe the most disruptive category of all, these improvised FPV drones. They're flown with goggles, just like a video game, often built from cheap off-the-shelf parts, and they're used for these incredibly precise little strikes. And the sheer number of these things, it's just wild. It's estimated that both sides in Ukraine have used over 1 million drones. This isn't some niche high-tech weapon anymore. This is mass warfare. And it really highlights what's driving this whole revolution. They're accessible. If you can't get your hands on a tank, a cheap drone modified yourself suddenly becomes your heavy hitter. And of course, what happens in Ukraine doesn't stay in Ukraine. The lessons learned there are kicking off a new global arms race. Countries all over the world are scrambling to build this tech and figure out how to defend against it. For decades, the US and Israel basically had a monopoly on the best drone tech. Well, that era is over. Russia is cranking out systems like the Lancet. Iran has become a huge exporter with its Shahed drones. And China is an absolute powerhouse, selling not just finished drones, but all the little parts that let everyone else build their own. And this has kicked off this frantic game of cat and mouse. For every new attack, a new defense pops up. So an attacker might try jamming, just blasting radio noise to mess up a drone's GPS. The defense? AI navigation that doesn't even need GPS. Okay, so then the attacker tries spoofing, feeding the drone fake coordinates to trick it. And a wild counter to that? Going back to old school tech, controlling a drone with a physical wire that you just can't hack. It's this constant, super fast cycle of move and countermove. This cycle of innovation is now pushing the drone revolution way beyond just the sky. The next phase is all about expanding into every part of the battlefield, with one key idea driving it all: autonomy. The air, well, that was the first domino to fall. From high-altitude spies to cheap little attackers, drones have totally changed how we think about air power. But that was just the beginning. Because now they're conquering the seas. I mean, look at the Black Sea. Ukraine has used these cheap, explosive robot boats to go up against the massive Russian Navy, and they've done incredible damage. At the same time, the US is going deeper, building huge unmanned submarines like the Monterey, designed to operate for months on end, where no human could. And yup, they are coming for the ground too. We're seeing everything from those robot dogs sniffing out landmines to autonomous transport robots like Gurion that can haul supplies or evacuate a wounded soldier without putting another human life at risk. Now, the really crucial idea here is that the future isn't about replacing humans. It's about partnering with them. The strategy is called manned-unmanned teaming. So just imagine a fighter pilot, but she's flying alongside a whole squadron of autonomous wingman drones. She can send her robot partners to do the most dangerous jobs, basically giving one pilot the power of an entire squadron, all while staying in command. But maybe the most mind-bending idea of all is the drone swarm. And this isn't just a lot of drones flying at once. No, this is a single, intelligent organism. You launch hundreds, maybe thousands of them. They talk to each other, they organize themselves using AI, and they can overwhelm even the best air defenses by just sheer numbers. They could even create things like flying minefields to completely block off a huge chunk of airspace. All this technology it's incredible, but it forces us to ask some really tough, really profound questions about where war is headed. What is the role of the human being in all of this? For now, at least, the official answer is clear. Military leaders insist that the human will always be the linchpin. A person, not a piece of code, has to be the one to make that final lethal decision. The goal, they say, is to protect soldiers, not to replace their judgment. And this quote, it just brings everything back to a really sobering reality. It doesn't matter how high-tech war gets, at its core, it's still about people. Technology changes the tools, for sure, but it doesn't change the fundamental tragedy of conflict. And yet we are sprinting into this future with a shocking lack of rules. I mean, international efforts to regulate autonomous weapons, they've all failed so far. There are no binding treaties for this stuff. No hard rules for what happens when a machine is empowered to make a life or death decision. Which leaves us with this. This is the big, final question. As these machines get smarter and smarter, who's responsible when they get it wrong? Is it the programmer who wrote the code? The commander who deployed the system? Or is it the machine itself? Finding an answer to that is without a doubt one of the biggest challenges of our time.